This past week, I was meeting with a healthcare provider, and as the nurse was checking me in, she was asking a litany of questions. Hearing such questions is very normal upon going in to see a doctor. Do you smoke? Do you drink alcohol? How many hours of sleep do you get on average? How often do you exercise? Do you have any allergies? What medications are you on? And so forth. And she was just offering those questions in rather quick fashion, and I was offering the answers in just as quickly because I had heard those questions before. But then to my surprise, she asked me this question: do you have anxiety and depression? It was here I paused. For one reason, I wasn't used to hearing the questions. In my pause, she looked up at me from her laptop as if to say, it's a yes or no question, yes or no answer. Now, the second reason for my pause was I was trying to figure out how to answer the question. I was trying to be as truthful as possible. My mind went to that continuum I mentioned last week, that continuum between flourishing and languishing, between mental health and mental anguish or fatigue or illness. And I was going to answer her where I thought I was on that continuum that morning after having very little sleep the night before and feeling very much dehydrated. I wasn't in the best frame of mind, but she didn't have time to hear my sermon from last week. Currently, no, I'm not anxious. But there have been events and been concerns that have raised my level of anxiety for sure in the past 6 months or year or 2 years. I'm a parent of 3 kids and concerned about the lasting impacts of this pandemic on their lives. I have a wife who's an ICU nurse whose unit was declared a month or 3 weeks before COVID hit this area that her unit was the unit that would be dealing on the front lines of COVID. No anxiety in our household at all in those early days. And I'm a pastor whose church looks greatly different today than it did going into the pandemic. I don't like what I see in the news, mostly. I have to travel every day through a construction zone. And she asked, do you have anxiety? Now, I'm not making light of this, as I don't know many people who haven't been anxious over something in the past 2 years. There may have been many a reason in the past 2 years that with all the amount of stress and concerns that have piled up and the level of anxiety can impact one's mood and behavior and way of thinking and disposition in life. She asked, are you depressed? Depressed? No. But there have been days when I look back, there have been days when I did not want to get out of bed. I didn't want to face the day. Didn't want to get out, sluggish. Let me just sleep in. There have been many a Sunday when I prayed to God, I am weak, strengthen me, O Lord. Let people see the cross that is before me. Let me hide behind the cross. Or saying to God, I would prefer to be anywhere else but the pulpit. Anywhere else than to be in the pulpit and proclaim good news when I've been surrounded by such bad news. Yet I'm here, fill me, Lord, use even me. Or this prayer, convince and convict me of hope so that what I offer doesn't seem empty. I'm glad she asked those questions because we have to think about physical health, yes. We also have to think about our mental health and how both impact our overall well-being. And then there's the emotional health and spiritual health. And when we're physically unhealthy, that can impact our mental health as we go through a treatment or we live with a physical ailment. And when we struggle mentally, it can be manifest in weight loss or weight gain. It can be manifest in sleepless nights, which then adds to irritability and fatigue and inattention. So someone who's struggling with mental illness may become withdrawn or pull back from people or events and situations that used to bring them great joy. Though the care provider's questions caught me off guard as I wasn't seeing a mental health care provider that day, I was thankful to know that the questions are being asked. We're hearing so much about mental health and how this is a mental health crisis in our country. And we in the church, we cannot just say we're going to leave this up to the counselors and the therapists and the psychiatrists to handle it for us as we go and see them. Let the news anchors tell us all the things that they need to tell us. And let the guidance counselors in school, let them be the ones with our teachers to help our children. It's in the church that we want to hear about what? We want to hear about faith and God. And we want to hear about joy and peace. We want to hear about grace. And yet we can't check out at the door to the narthex when we come to the sanctuary. We can't check all the things that we need to bring with us into the sanctuary. Nor can we check it out when we go to the website to get online to worship. We can't just check out the struggles and challenges we face in life and put on our Sunday's best, or even if the Sunday's best is our Sunday's best pajamas while you're worshiping online. We cannot just come in here and present our best selves to God and portray to others that we've got our stuff together. In the past 2 years, the number of suicides and attempts are up, as is domestic violence and domestic abuse. Depression and anxiety have certainly increased. That all indicators that we are in this mental health crisis. And we need to speak to this, not just from the pulpit on a Sunday morning, but we need to speak about this as a community of faith, that we might be all part of us, be part of this community that's creating this safe space and this brave place where we in the church can talk, where we can talk about peace, but also anxiety. Where we can talk about joy and happiness, but also sadness and depression, and discuss the very things that we are experiencing in life through the lens of faith, through our understanding that Jesus is with us. So we're not just going to preach the Bible in a happy vacuum of faith. We're not simply going to say, just pray enough and pray the anxiety and the depression away and it'll go away. Just choose joy and you'll be happy. Or think maybe as a church, if we don't talk about it, it'll just go away. Church, we have to talk about it. Mental illness is impacting many people. It's impacting many marriages and many families. In a book written prior to the pandemic, Amy Simpson in Troubled Minds wrote that if your church is a typical of the U.S. population, on any given Sunday, 1 in 4 adults and 1 in 5 children sitting around you are suffering from a mental illness. So today, just like we did last week and today and next week, we're going to be continuing this series on mental health. And we'll be talking about hope. We'll be talking about peace. We'll be talking about how Jesus is with us in today's context. And what is that context? Our country is in the midst of a mental health crisis. Why? Because of the relentlessness of the pandemic and how it alters so much of life. And as we emerge from the pandemic and all that we've had to endure, we can't simply just snap our fingers and everything's okay, or snap right back to what things were like before and act like what we've experienced or what we've endured has no impact. Or maybe a weekend getaway, that'll solve everything. As great as those weekends are away. Or a massage, that'll take care of it. No, as great as a massage can be, it takes more than a massage, or even one visit to a counselor or an hour of worship. It's great to see signs of new life, but we still have to sort through things. We have to sort through those months of feeling isolation, of living with the fear of spread or the anxiety that it came with it, the pressures, the broken trust. The feelings of abandonment, of disappointment. Disappointment in other people. Disappointment in ourselves. Disappointment in institutions. Disappointment in the church even. And the loss that comes when the future we plan for ourselves seems so different. We are in the age of anxiety, or as one of the plenary speakers I heard a little over a month ago said, that this is the traumatic age. The traumatic age. Normally when we think of trauma, we think of an accident or an acute health event or a natural disaster or an atrocity that comes with war, and then we speak of a post-stress syndrome. It is witnessing something or experiencing something that has shaken us at our very core. J.R. Briggs, in a recent book, A Time to Heal, writes, numerous crises and disasters around the world in the United States culminated into what many describe as one large, ongoing, overwhelming, scary reality. And all of this together makes this the traumatic age. And since this time can be described as one long, large, ongoing, and overwhelming, scary reality, I'm so thankful that we have Jesus who walks with us as we face and live with this reality, one who can offer in peace in the midst of what we have endured or what we are enduring. I pray that people will have the ability to see Jesus and experience Jesus in the midst of the reality that we face. I also pray that we, the church, can help one another in our collective need of healing and the salvation to experience Jesus in our midst, in the breaking of bread, in our studying the Scriptures, in our time of worship, in this community of faith as we share in times of fellowship and as we go forth to serve. In our gospel lesson this morning, Jesus comes up to two people who are leaving Jerusalem. They're on this 7-mile journey to Emmaus. And we don't know what Emmaus represents. It could be that they're going back to their old lives before they were disciples of Jesus. It could be that that's where home was, and they were wanting to find the comforts of home. But they're on this journey, and this is a post-resurrection story where Jesus had been crucified, died, buried, and now he has risen from the tomb. And he's going and he's having these encounters with some of the disciples. And he reveals himself to them. And so here are two disciples. They're not the original 12, but the disciples nonetheless who've been following Jesus in the Galilee, have followed Jesus into Jerusalem, had been there filled with hope that Jesus was the Messiah, the one who could redeem Israel. Filled with hope and excitement of what would be. And yet they watched. They watched what unfolded. The suffering, the crucifixion, Jesus' death, his body being laid in the tomb. And when his body is laid in the tomb, there goes their hope. Their hope died. Their hope died and was buried with Jesus in the tomb. So it seems that they are fleeing Jerusalem, running from it all. For they had experienced such atrocities. They had experienced a traumatic event. Their hope had died. Their dreams shattered. Fear and anxiety had taken hold of them. And to their knowledge, now this body was gone and the tomb was empty. Though they had not yet experienced the resurrected experience of Jesus, their hope was gone. Yes, they were experiencing a traumatic event. This had shaken them to their core, and they were trying desperately to make sense of it all. What happened with the crucifixion, but probably their call to discipleship and what that meant for them. They're not in a good place. They're not in a good place mentally. They're not in a good place emotionally, spiritually. And they're walking together, discussing. What do we read? We read that they're talking and discussing. To me, that's the same thing, but it has to mean different things. Does this mean that as they were talking, maybe they were arguing with one another? As they were talking, maybe they're trying to reason with one another over the events that had taken place? And they're not in a good place at all, mentally and spiritually, to the point that they could not see that the person in front of them was Jesus. They think he's a stranger. And Jesus is not coming up to them incognito. He's not coming up to them in camouflage or looking altogether different. No, it's not like he's a masked singer and he removes the mask and like, it's me, Jesus. They're just not in a place spiritually to recognize that it was Jesus. Given what they had experienced and endured, they could not see Jesus clearly, though Jesus was clearly there. Sorting through the events and seeking to gain clarity on their own, with their own ability to reason through what had happened, prohibited them from recognizing Jesus when he was right in front of their eyes. They needed help. They needed help to see. And Jesus doesn't leave them at all. He doesn't let them figure out on their own, leaving them in their place of distress. He walked with them each step of the way on this long journey. And what did he do? He invited them to tell the story, to talk it out, Tell me what's going on. And then he reminded them of the story of God at work, going all the way back to Moses, when Moses heard, and God heard the cry of the people, and God sent Moses, and they were rescued from being enslaved. Jesus goes all the way back to that first deliverance, that first act of salvation. And then he invites them to see the scriptures that point them back to Jesus. And when they broke bread, when they communed with Jesus, that's when they realized that the person was not a stranger. This person who'd been with them the entire time was Jesus. You know, there are times in life with certain events and circumstances and the stresses and strains that come with them. Those situations in life can keep us from understanding how God is with us. And the effects of the pandemic can add up and take its mental toll on us, and we stand in need of healing. You know, difficult situations and negative events can darken our perception of reality, keeping us at times from the hope that Christ is offering. The hope that is there just beyond the horizon of despair. Anxiety can keep us from experiencing and sharing and being at peace. Dark clouds can roll in, and the sadness and depression can keep us from seeing the light of Christ that is always there. It's just hidden by the layers of darkness that the clouds have rolled in. And there have been many a cloud that's gotten in the way in these past 2 years from seeing things clearly. The pressures of academics on our young people, trying to excel in everything, trying to meet up to expectations, overextending themselves as we try to keep up with demands, not sensing that they're ever good enough or smart enough, can actually get to our young people. Unsure of next steps, trying to land that well-paying job or believing that we're never financially secure enough can weigh heavy on us. And though we may say to one another, we're fine, that's masking our struggles. And our smiles can say one thing, but our smiles might be masking hurts and disappointments and brokenness. You know, there is absolutely nothing wrong. There's absolutely nothing wrong with seeking help from a counselor or therapist who then can aid us when mental conditions have affected our way of thinking, our feeling, our mood, our overall disposition, our behavior. There is no shame in seeking help. It's not a sign of weakness in seeking help. We are human beings who have been facing challenges at work. We are human beings who've been facing challenges at home that we weren't trained for or equipped to handle. I mean, I never took the class on how to lead a church during a pandemic. You know, I missed that one 25 years ago. Maybe I also missed the handbook on how to parent during a pandemic. You know, the church, the community of believers, has a role in this healing process as well. As a church has the capacity, we have the story. And we have the story of God's love and grace in Jesus Christ. And this is a story that we must lift up continually in good seasons and in not good seasons, to lift up the truth that Jesus is with us, how he walks with us, especially in times when we may be having difficulty sensing, seeing, and believing. Today, as we break bread together, we do so trusting that the sacrament is still a revelatory event where we can experience Christ's presence. And we do so trusting that even though it's a mystery how Christ is present in the bread and the cup, how Christ is present in a prepackaged bread and cup, how Jesus is present at this table and extended to the table in our homes as you're watching and worshiping online, we do so trusting that the Holy Spirit is at work bringing forth the presence of Christ. And so we come to the table this morning. We come to this table from different places. We come, some of us from Valley Low, some of us come from experiencing the joy of days of new beginnings. Some are come filled with hope. And some are coming holding on to it barely, longing to hold on to it even more. Some come to the table flourishing. Others come languishing. But we all come. We all hear the same invitation. We all are invited to the same table of grace, seeking to be fed, seeking to experience the healing presence of Jesus, seeking to experiencing the comforting presence of Jesus, the Jesus who says you don't have to be strong enough, you don't have to be good enough, you don't have to have all your stuff together to come. Just come. Come, and Jesus will meet us right here, offering us hope, offering us peace, offering us strength, offering us His presence. For Jesus seeks to walk with us, all of us, to days and new beginnings. Friends, I'm going to hold on to that hope, and I hope you will too. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen.